Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video. And the subject of today's video is going to be on the San Antonio Spurs and specifically DeMar Derozan. So why am I talking about the Spurs and DeMar Derozan right now? They haven't been relevant really for the past couple months, and they didn't make really any big free agency moves or trades. They brought back Rudy Gay, they brought in Trey Lyles, but nothing really notable per se. But the reason I'm bringing them up is that with what the Thunder just did, trading away Russ Westbrook and Paul George, I see the Spurs as basically a very similar situation to what the Thunder just went through. A team where they've got two all-star kind of guys in LaMarcus and DeMar DeRozan, but their ceiling is basically a first-round exit in the West. And I think that much like the Thunder, if they were smart, they'd realize that they should be trading those players to try and get whatever assets that they can get back. And so today I've set up some trades that I think the Spurs should be willing to take or should consider if they were going to look to rebuild and blow it up, much like the Thunder did. Of course, this would be reliant on Greg Popovich stepping away from the team and probably retiring because I think they have some sort of unspoken rule that they want to be a contender while Greg Popovich is still coaching the team. So if he stays like all of this year and all of next year, of course, then they probably wouldn't do this. But if he decides, yes, it's okay, let's go for the rebuild for the long-term prosperity of the team, then I think that they would consider going through with some of these trades, and I think that they should definitely consider them. So without further ado, today I have set up some possible trades for DeMar DeRozan that I think teams who need a good wing scorer would consider, and also the Spurs would consider if they were trying to rebuild. So let's go through them. So the first one I have on here I think makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of goofy and whatnot, but the first trade I have is DeMar DeRozan going back to Toronto. Yes, I repeat, back to Toronto in exchange for Serge Ibaka, a 2023 first round pick, and a 2023 second round pick. So why does each team do this? Well, I think for the Raptors, it's pretty clear. They lost Kawhi Leonard, so they lost a really good wing scorer and just wing player in general, and they need one back and like an all-star caliber guy to sort of be like the face of this team. And previously, that was DeMar DeRozan. So I think that they could really use him back actually in a way because now that the rental is over, they have a big gaping hole at their wing slot, and they could use DeMar DeRozan. So if you factor in DeMar DeRozan joining this team, I think they get a lot better with, let's say, a core of Kyle Lowry, Van Fleet, DeRozan, Marc Gasol, Pascal Siakam, who's now developed quite a bit and is like a fringe all-star caliber player. And then off the bench, like Rondae Hollis Jefferson, uh, let's see here, who else? OG Anunoby, Stanley Johnson, Patrick McCaw. So they'd be like a top four seed in the East, probably like the three seed if they had DeMar DeRozan this year with that remaining team. And then why the Spurs would do this? DeRozan's contract lasts for 2 more years, whereas Ibaka's lasts for 1 more year. So you would get all of that money, about 23 to $24 million you'd get back after this coming season. And then they'd also get a first round pick with which to rebuild and a second round pick with which to also rebuild. So what do the Spurs get? They get out from that big contract. They get their money back sooner to do with as they please, and they get a first round pick. Likely past when Toronto would be a great contender. By 2023, like Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol will both for sure be gone, I would say, because I think like Lowry would be like 36 at that point, and Marc Gasol would be like 39, or no, he would be like 38. And then like DeRozan might still be there, but he'd be like 33 if that were to happen. I don't think they'd really be contenders, so it would be a pick where they would get probably a higher pick rather than like the 25th pick or something. The next trade I have here is probably the most simple one of all as far as like the parts moving around. It's a trade between the Spurs and the Warriors, and it's the basically a straight up swap of D'Angelo Russell for DeMar DeRozan. Why would the Warriors do this? Well, D'Angelo Russell is a point guard at heart. He can play some shooting guard, but really he needs the ball in his hands, so he's still essentially a point guard. And the Warriors already have that in Steph Curry, and I think, although D'Angelo and DeMar are basically like very similar players in a lot of ways, in that they like the ball in their hands to create, I think DeMar being like a small forward fits much more of a need for the Warriors, considering that they lost Durant, they need somebody to plug in at small forward. If they were to keep D'Angelo Russell, the plan would basically be Steph at the 1, D'Lo at the 2, and Clay at the 3. But Clay's never really consistently played small forward, so I think it'd be better to bring in a guy like DeRozan who has before, who can play it, and he's still like an all-star caliber player who could give you like somewhere between 20 to 25 points per night. So I think that that would also fit. And then the timeline too. D'Angelo Russell is like 23, whereas Curry's 31, Clay's 29, Draymond's 29. Um, so this team is much more like a win now team, and I think DeRozan being 29 would fit in with that much better than D'Lo being like 23 and trying to fit in with this core that's like much more like we need to win titles now. So I like this trade for both teams. And then for the Spurs, you get a lot younger and you basically expedite your rebuild by getting a super young guy in D'Lo, who's also like proven and an all-star already. Yes, they have a crowded backcourt with like Patty Mills, Marco Bellinelli, Bryn Forbes, Lonnie Walker, Derek White, and DeJounte Murray. But you can always flip some of those guys. Or like a Patty Mills, you could honestly just like cut him and it wouldn't be too big of a deal because at this point there's just not enough minutes to go around. Next, I have, let's see here, I have the Spurs trading with the Indiana Pacers, who I think at this point, yes, they have Malcolm Brogdon, but is he like a definitive 2 option on a playoff team that's trying to contend and go far in the playoffs? I don't really think so. So in this trade, I have them acquiring DeMar Derozan in exchange for a 2026 Pacers first round pick, which again I put it far enough in the future because I think that the teams would want a draft pick that's far enough out where the team wouldn't still be a contender and the draft pick wouldn't mean as much. So by 2026, the Pacers might have fallen back down to being like a lottery team, and this pick would be a lot more valuable. I also have the Spurs getting T.J. Warren, Jeremy Lamb, and Doug McDermott. So there's no like grand prize to this trade for the Spurs really. Like T.J. Warren could be like 17 points per game, so replacing most of DeMar's production. Jeremy Lamb can be like 10 points per game on decent efficiencies. Same with Doug McDermott, could be like somewhere between 7 to 10 points on, and he's a pretty good shooter. So you're just getting like some role players back along with like a decent starter in TJ Warren. And then the first round pick is like the icing on the cake, I'd say. And for the Pacers, you're giving up a lot of decent to good pieces, but you're getting like a very good all-star caliber piece back. And I would like this for the Pacers in that their starting lineup after this would, when Oladipo's healthy, it would probably look like Oladipo at the 1 or Brogdon at the 1. They're kind of like combo guards. So in the backcourt, you'd have Oladipo and Brogdon with DeRozan at the 3. At the 4, you'd have Sabonis. At the 5, Miles Turner. So you'd still have a pretty good team. And then off the bench, you'd have Aaron Holiday, T.J. McConnell. They'd probably have to sign a few other guys because at this point their bench would be sort of weak. They'd have TJ Leaf too, but they would need a little bit more depth than what they have right now. But it would definitely solidify them, I think, as like a top 4 seed in the East when Oladipo is healthy. And then again, a point I want to make for the Spurs is that like TJ Warren and Jeremy Lamb and Doug McDermott all have far more tradable contracts than DeMar does. Like TJ and Jeremy are each making 10 million a year, and Doug is making 7. So you could like break those guys up and trade them in different packages if you wanted. TJ Warren on 3 years at 10 million. It's one of the best value contracts in the NBA, so he could be really valuable to dangle with another contract that you don't want, and you could get something really good in return, like a plethora of first round picks or something. But as for now, that's the trade I have, and I think the Pacers would do it because it would make them a much better contender than what they are at the moment. Next trade I have is with a team that everyone's talking about in trade rumors, and that is the Miami Heat. So let's get into it. I have Miami sending a 2026 first round pick to the Spurs. Of course, again, same reasoning. Far enough in the future that it might be a better pick than what it would be like next year. Then I also have the Spurs getting James Johnson, who essentially would be salary filler, and Justice Winslow, who's a really nice young player. And then the Heat would get DeMar DeRozan. So why would the Spurs get this or do this trade? Excuse me. James Johnson's contract gets off the books faster than DeRozan's. He gets off actually it's at the same time, but he's just basically salary cap filler honestly at this point. And then Justice Winslow's a really nice young player who I think when given a little more free reign on a team, he could be really impressive guy, like averaging 16, 5, and 6 or something like that. And then the first round pick is, well, you gotta get some insurance for the future too. But the Heat actually give up a decent amount of depth here because then at their wing spots in the power forward, they don't have much left. But they do gain an all-star in DeMar DeRozan. And you might be saying, well, DeMar and Jimmy Butler are sort of like carbon copies of each other. Why would you want both guys? At this point, honestly, the more the better for this Heat team. They kind of just lack like really quality starting talent for this team. So your starting lineup after this would look like Goran Dragic, DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler. Um, Probably then at the four, you'd have Derrick Jones Jr. playing like a small ball power forward, and then Bam starting at center with a bench of like Myers Leonard, Dion Waiters, Kelly Olynyk, and Tyler Hero. So you'd still have some depth, but again, like you'd be a little bit weak at like the power forward slot because like unless you want to play Kelly Olynyk there, who's a little too slow to play it in my opinion, for long like stretches of times, like for 25 to 30 minutes a night, I don't think he can really play power forward in the NBA. He's just too slow. But like Derrick Jones Jr. is such an athletic freak, I think he could do fine at it. And then the final trade I have on here is the Pistons versus the Spurs, or excuse me, the Pistons trading with the Spurs. And it would be Reggie Jackson to the Spurs along with Tony Snell, 2021 first round pick and a 2023 second round pick. You know, this trade might require like a second first round pick if the Spurs aren't happy with their return for DeRozan. So Reggie Jackson is $19 million, who's coming off the books after next year, so you recoup your money a lot faster. Tony Snell is only making $11 million, so a guy who is much more easily movable with any combination of asset. Then the first round pick, again, it's like you need some actual value out of this trade besides just like salary cap relief. And then the second round pick is just kind of like a throw in to juice it up the trade a bit. But maybe the Spurs would want another first from the Pistons, in which they'd have to consider that. And then for the Pistons, you get DeMar DeRozan back, and then also by getting rid of Reggie Jackson, you open up the hole for Derrick Rose to be able to start at point guard, which he'd be much more comfortable with rather than being like a combo guard off the bench. So your starting lineup for the Pistons after this would look like Derrick Rose at the 1. At the 2, I think maybe you'd go Langston Galloway, but what I would envision for this team is probably, looking around, yeah, probably Langston Galloway at the 2, DeMar DeRozan at the 3, and then Blake and Andre at the 4 and the 5 with like a bench of Luke Kennard and Thon Maker and Markieff Morris. So that'd be a pretty decent team. They'd have 3 like legit all-stars with a really good fourth piece in Derrick Rose, and I could definitely see them making like an appearance in the second round possibly even. That might seem like a stretch, but I could see it. And that's all I have for today, guys. Those are my DeMar DeRozan trade possibilities. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think of the trades or of your own trade ideas or just thoughts about the Spurs or DeMar in general. I'd love to hear them. I hope you guys have a good day and that you enjoyed the video and that I see you next time. Bye.